As early as 2000, the U.S. military looked for an improved version of the F-22 Raptor and began development for a newer model. Another reason for the creation of a new model was to be able to export it for service in allied nations, something that was forbidden with the Raptor. In 2000, the X-35 was first flown but was rearranged to be retrofitted with newer technology. This would become the F-35, which first flew in 2006. However, this was the most expensive military program in history, having a budget of $1.5 trillion over its 55-year lifespan. It was so big that even allied nations provided funding. While this fifth-generation fighter jet does have a lot of upsides, like its electronic warfare capabilities and precise weapon specifications, it should not be the main multi-role jet in any air force. A better option for this aircraft is more of a support role to augmentate and aid the already existing fighter jets. And here is why. For starters, the F-35 lacks a lot of maneuverability. Stealth features on a jet take down a lot of maneuver characteristics. In 2015, an actual F-35 pilot published a report stating that the jet is even weaker than an F-16 in regards to dogfighting, specifically stating its turning and climbing power that it is inferior, which is something that's needed in a dogfight. It's no wonder that this is the case since the jet's thrust-to-weight ratio is much lower than those of other modern jets. Another problem with the F-35 is that it carries less weapons. In order to be a stealth fighter, all its weapons need to be internal, which leads to a smaller load and it would not be able to operate in large-scale attacks. The same applies to its external fuel tanks, meaning that it will have a much smaller range. As if that isn't enough, there have also been concerns over the safety of the personnel while operating the jet. In March 2013, United States Air Force test pilots flying with pre-operational software that did not utilize the all-aspect of infrared AAQ-37 DAS sensor rated a lack of visibility from the F-35's cockpit during evaluation flights, which would get the jet consistently shot down in combat. Defense spending analyst Winslow Wheeler concluded from flight evaluation reports that the F-35 is flawed beyond redemption. The report found several safety concerns with the F-35, such as current aircraft software being inadequate, possible failing ejection seats, several pilot-vehicle interface issues, poor radar, failure of maintenance tools, and that it would take up to 52 hours to replace the engine. The Royal Canadian Air Force also reported that the very metallic skin would peel off if they ever ventured into the cold and frozen north because of the soft armor needed for stealth capabilities. Australia reported a similar analysis with its own environment, with its own technical errors. Even other allied nations which have showed interest in the jet have turned it down. However, still many Republican candidates still praise it to this day. Donald Trump, for example, said that the jet is invisible.
With the Air Force ordering a lot of planes, in particular the F-35 fighter jet, which is, almost like an invisible fighter. I was asking the Air Force guys, I said, how good is this plane? They said, well, sir, you can't see it. I said, yeah, but in a fight, a fight like I watch on the movies, the fight, they're fighting. How good is it? They say, well, it wins every time because the enemy cannot see it. Even if it's right next to it, it can't see it. I said,
okay, no comment, just moving on. The only nations in possession of the F-35 are predominantly the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Marines, and the Israeli Defense Force.
Japan's defense ministry is investigating what's happened to an F-35 stealth fighter missing over the Pacific. Officials believe the jet crashed. They found wreckage thought to be from it. The search for the pilot goes on. Similar Japanese jets have been grounded.
The Pentagon even listed 5 recommendations which were given to the program. The first one is to increase pitch and rate to provide the pilot with more maneuverability options. The second one is to consider increasing alpha onset. The third one is to increase the beginning of high AOA blended region to at least 30 degrees for predictable and more intuitive maneuvering. The fourth one is to increase the pilot yaw rate to remove gradual sluggish response, and lastly to improve the HMD bore sight performance. Now, I'm not saying that the F-35 should be scrapped. That would mean all the money and efforts spent on the project would go to waste. Instead, the US should use the F-35 in support roles to already existing aircraft. All money should mainly be focused on modernizing the F-16, F-15, F-18, and F-22 jets while keeping the F-35 in its current state. A good support role would come a long way in a potential conflict, especially since seeing that aircraft are an essential tool in the modern battlefield.